What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Kansas Kid Podcast. This is episode 2. If you want to check out episode 1, it's on my channel. I uploaded it Tuesday, which was my birthday. I will give a fair warning to those who haven't seen the first episode. It does deal with a lot of heavy topics such as religion and faith, and if that's something that you're put off by for any reason whatsoever, just you can go ahead and skip it. None of these they do line up because it's my life. This is a story podcast about my life, and if you want to know more about what I grew up raised believing in and what I still believe in and just everything about who I am religiously, you can go ahead and check that out. It's episode 1. It's called Belief. Now we're going on to episode 2, where I'm going to be talking about a little bit more about my childhood and my upbringing and how I grew up, how I was raised, and compare it kind of to what I see kids being raised like today in today's climate, because it's drastically different to how I was raised. So, first things first, I do want to say that I did have a good birthday, for anyone wondering. I doubt anyone is wondering, but if you are wondering, I did have a pretty decent birthday. I didn't get to do anything, obviously, because of COVID and anything like that, so I didn't get to go out and hang out with friends or go anywhere to eat or anything like that. That wasn't something I could do. I wasn't able to do. I did make a cake. I made the cake from Portal, Black Forest cake. It turned out to be atrocious. The taste was fantastic. It tasted great, but while making it, it fell apart, and it was just, it was rough. Although I did get a lot of money for my birthday from my family, and I thank them tremendously, and they really helped with a lot of things. So, yeah. I guess that's all I can say about my birthday. I had cake. I got to eat. So the thing was, I haven't eaten out. Like we've cooked it. I've cooked at home for the last year. Ever since last March, we started cooking out or cooking. We started cooking and we didn't go out. That's what it was. I haven't gone out. I haven't eaten anything from a restaurant. I haven't eaten any fast food. Anything. I've cooked at home. Have not eaten anything out since last March. So for my birthday, I went out and I got Raising Cane's chicken. Brought it home. Took it out of the box. Put it on a plate. And then microwaved it. Made sure all the germs were killed off. Or I put it in the oven or something like that. I think I put it in the oven. And then put it on a plate, and then I ate it. And that was great, because I hadn't had that in like a year, like I said. So I did that. That was about it. All I did for my birthday. Planned to buy a new chair, because as you can hear, my chair is very squeaky. I wanted to buy a new desk, because the desk I'm using is my dad's old desk, which he got in the early 90s, which is, why is it still even a thing? Why is it still running? I have no idea. Anyway, let's get into episode 2 of the podcast. Let's talk about a little bit more about my how I grew up and everything like that. So obviously you know from the last episode that I will say that I won't get into anything political or religious-wise, belief-wise about me, but I will talk about what my dad believes in and stuff like that. Because, I'm talking about my family here and how I grew up and stuff. So obviously, if you watched the first episode or you listened to the first episode, you know that I was born February 2nd, 2001. Born in Kansas. I lived in Kansas all my life, basically. My mom was from Pakistan, which is really unique. It's always good to have, it's cool to be able to come from an interracial couple. That kind of sounds weird, but just to hear more stories, because I feel like it'd be really boring if I had two parents from Kansas or one from the United States even, It'd be fun to hear about where they're from or whatever, but I feel like I hear a lot about my mom and her side of the family, and I get to talk to them a lot, and it's really refreshing and a nice breath of fresh air. My dad's been in Kansas ever since he was born, too. He stayed before that, too, He's been here for a long time. His sister, which is my aunt, their mom, my grandma, my aunt's husband, my uncle. We all kind of we've all kind of like stayed in the Kansas area except for my mom. So anyway, I was born February 2nd. Kind of a weird looking baby. I don't know. I may have to add some baby pictures to the video here. I don't know if I will do that though. because I feel like people that, if I do put this on like Spotify or SoundCloud eventually, no one's going to be able to see it. So I'll just say this. I'll put in the pictures maybe, and if I don't, sorry to the YouTube people, but for those who are listening on Spotify or SoundCloud, maybe, possibly iTunes later in the future, go to YouTube and look it up because it's there and you can see my baby pictures if you really want to see it. Maybe if I forget, if I remember to put them in. I was a weird looking baby. I kind of looked like I had Down syndrome, and that's nothing against people with Down syndrome. I just kind of had like these big bulgy eyes, and I just kind of looked awkward. I didn't grow any hair. I was very bald. I didn't have any hair until 3 years old, which is really weird to say because most babies you see on like commercials, or like even if you have any relatives that have children, you know, they have hair at a very early age. But I, for some reason, didn't grow hair till I was 3 years old. But as soon as it grew like a motherfucker. I forgot I could swear on my own show. This is my show, so I forgot I could swear. But yeah, I grew an afro. It looked like a perm, like an afro perm. I'll try and find a picture of that too. It was wild. My hair was wild. My hair is no longer like that. My hair is straighter than a straight person. I don't know what an analogy for that is. My hair is straighter than like a fucking yardstick. I don't know. It used to have really curly afro-like hair, and it was really weird. But I was like, oh, okay. And you know, you'd think, I'm not saying this to be racist, I'm saying this because my mom is from the Middle East, and Middle Eastern people tend to be very, very down with the hair, if you know what I mean. They're very hairy people, and I myself am weird, because there are spots on my body that don't have hair, but other spots, like on my forearm, there's hair at the very top, like near my wrist, hair all over my hand, all over my fingers, but like towards my elbow, there's no hair whatsoever. A few hairs on my bicep, and then hair all over my chest, hair all over my stomach, hair all over my legs, except for like patches on my legs have no hair. I have really hairy legs except for like small patches, and it's like, is it a vitamin deficiency? Is it just a birth defect? I don't know. Excuse me. I don't have coffee for this episode too because I'm filming it kind of like afternoon a little bit. Yeah, there's spots where I don't have hair. Like my left hand has a lot of hair. My right hand has not that much hair. It's really weird. I just have really weird hair patches, and I tend to worry myself a lot. I don't know if I'm just like I have a vitamin deficiency, or if I'm stressed, or if like perhaps I'm overweight. I think that would have to do with the vitamin deficiency. But when I go and take a shower, every time I take a shower and I use shampoo or conditioner or both, and I scrub my head, there's like so much hair that comes off of the top of my head. But I have long hair because while I haven't eaten out in a year, I also have not gotten a haircut in about a year too, which is really insane. My hair that I have now has been growing for a year, and it's weird. This is the longest I've ever grown my hair. But like every time I get in the shower, I scrub my hair, use my shampoo, and I comb my hair with my hands, and just all this hair comes out on my hands, and I'm like, what am I doing? And even when I take baths or showers and I have to go in and get like a paper towel and like scrub the drain, and when I scrub it on the towel, there's like so much, like a big giant clump of hair. I get worried. I worry myself every time. My girlfriend tells me not to worry about it because she has the same thing, and it's just like dead hair that falls out, and it happens with everybody, and I take her word for it. So I'm just gonna stick with that and try not to worry myself. But yeah, I was hairless for a long time as a kid, 3 years, and then eventually I just sprouted a bunch of hair. You know, as a baby, you know, it's weird because I remember things that no baby or toddler should remember. Like you should not remember what you did as a toddler or a baby. But I remember so many things. Like my dad always tells me that he dropped me on the hospital floor right after I was born. Obviously, I don't remember that. But and yes, that is apparently a true story because my grandma and my dad have both sat me down and been like, you know what, Adam, I'm going to tell you this. Don't ever tell your mom. Mom, if you're watching this, I'm sorry I had to find out this way on YouTube or SoundCloud or whatever. But Dad, when I was born, was holding me while my mom was asleep, and apparently had dropped me, or I fell out of my little tub thing or whatever, crib or whatever, onto the Nolium hospital floor. I wasn't badly hurt. Well, that kind of, I guess that would explain why I'm really fucked up a little bit, but I'm not crazy, I swear. I'm just like, I forget things easy a lot, and on Discord, on the Discord server with Aubrey and Eric, I'm known as the Forgetful God because I forget so much shit. It's not even funny. On top of being dropped, though, in the hospital. I don't remember that, but I remember things like I was telling my mom, like, I don't know, like 8-9 years ago, like, hey, Mom, you remember when I was, like, a little kid and I, like, threw a baby bottle or, like, a train? It was a train. It was a metal train. I had, like, a metal train. It was like a kid's toy. I don't know why you'd make a metal kid's toy, but I threw the train at her, like, her makeup table, and it broke the mirror. And she was like, how the hell do you remember that? You did that when you were 2 years old. And I was like, I did not know I was 2 years old. I thought I was like 6 or 7. Didn't know I was 2 years old. I was like, what? Get out. I was not 2 years old. Apparently I broke her mirror when I was 2 years old. And I somehow remember that. I remember crawling. I remember going outside and getting my first eyelash stuck in my eye, and it was the scariest experience. And I do remember my parents being like, Adam, just calm down. You have an eyelash in your eye. Just don't worry about it. So weird, so weird. And while I mentioned my mom and dad, I haven't mentioned anyone else. I lived with my, not only my mom and dad, but I also had my grandma, my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin. My cousin is 2 years older than me. He's essentially my brother. And, I even asked my parents why they didn't have another kid because, I would have loved to actually have a brother, but my mom and dad were always just like, nope, we're one and done. That's all we needed. That's all we could take care of because they are a poor family. I'll get into that here in a little bit. But I am an only child. But, growing up with multiple people in my house was kind of comforting at times because you'll understand why, and this has something to do with my fears, which I'll get into also later in this episode, but, growing up with other people was really comforting for me, especially with one who's only a couple years older than me. It was basically like having a big brother in my house. We always spent every holiday together. We always grew up together. It was so nice going on vacation together, which we did once in 2006 and then didn't do again until 6 years later in 2012. It's very nice, and it's very real. It makes you feel safer when you have more people, I guess, in your house that actually love and care about you. And Nick, I have so many fond memories with Nick. I may do a whole episode about Nick. The things that we did were just insane and crazy, and I guess I always wanted a brother. I always asked my parents about brothers and sisters because I wanted an older brother, I guess, who I could look up to and get advice for. And, at a younger age, Nick wasn't like that because he hadn't matured quite enough yet. But Nick's on the right path of life right now, and he's really been there for me a lot. So I can safely say that he has done a lot to help me become who I am. And I know if he heard me say that, he'd be like, "Well, then I failed," because because we give each other shit all the time, If I tell him that, or if I complain that I got hurt or something like that, he's like, "Oh, you should have just ended your life right there." We give each other shit all the time. It's kind of funny, but yeah, we do YouTube together now too. So YouTube not only together, but we also do videos separately. But yeah, I love my aunt. My aunt was there. My uncle was there. Uncle usually worked. But yeah, mom and dad worked too. And yeah, my mom and dad did not have enough money to support another child, is why I didn't have a brother or sister. And Nick was the best thing to a brother or sister. He's not a sister, he's a brother. Closer thing to a brother. He's my first cousin, but you can say cousin all you want, he's my brother. But poor family. We were a poor. My mom and dad especially. My aunt and uncle were kind of better off because my uncle had a really good job, not a really great job, but it was a very decent job that helped them live. They could have easily lived off of it. My aunt doesn't have to work because of it. My mom and dad, however, though, still work. Dad and little cookie cutter knick-knack teenager jobs that teenagers in high school would have to make some little extra cash on the side. That's how they work. That's how they get money. They don't have anything else to their name except for these two really Mickey Mouse jobs. And I see what they mean. They probably couldn't afford to raise another kid. It'd probably be very too much money, and I totally understand why. That it's just not a thing like that. And do I regret not having a brother or sister? Yes and no, because as much as I did, I have Nick, and he's the closest thing, and it's the closest thing I have without having to worry about my mom and dad's financial security. And my parents, I have a great relationship with most of my family members. My aunt is basically a second mom to me. My uncle, I would say he's like a second dad to me, but he wasn't always, growing up, he wasn't like that for me. He was always gone most of the time, except for weekends because he worked. But as I grow up, he's slowly becoming more relevant in my life. And I'm thankful for that. I'm really thankful for that. It's really nice. And as far as parents go, obviously, my relationship with my dad is kind of torn, because I love him, he's my dad, but we've had our share of history together, both rough and nice history. But my mom has always been a saint. She's always been the sweetheart of my two parents. She's always helped me with everything. She doesn't understand English that well, still to this day. Still to this day, my grandma always tells me stories about how she had speech classes, but it really didn't help because she still struggles with English. She asked me to teach her a lot more about it and help her write paragraphs to her family and stuff like that have to be in English. So, but other than that, my mom, we always communicated well, and she always helped me where she could. But my dad was very stricter about it because of how he was raised. I was kind of spoiled. I was spoiled more by my mom, but I also wasn't because of my dad. Which is weird because I gotta sneeze. Hold on. I think I have to sneeze. Excuse me. I wasn't spoiled because of my mom, but my dad, I was spoiled because of my mom. My mom spoiled the hell out of me. She always got me a lot of things and stuff like that, but at the same time, she also learned from my dad, and I'll get into a funny story about that here in a second. But today's generation, they don't have to worry about that because today's generation, usually both their parents, moms and dads, will spoil the hell out of them, give them whatever they want, and tell them that they are free to do whatever, and that there's no consequences whatsoever, and that there's no repercussions. And I think that's one of the reasons why kids are so, spoiled, is because their parents. It's on the parents. You gotta at some point put some of the blame on the parents. You can't baby your kids too much, otherwise they'll enter the real world and be like, oh, this shit's scary. I wasn't prepared for this. And my dad always got me ready for that. My aunt did too. My aunt was a lot more nicer about it, but, my dad did too. And, a lot of people complain about today's generation. Some people complain about the boomers, and yeah, I see exactly what the problem with the boomers is, but I feel like that was directly because they were like, oh, the millennials were given whatever they want, and they're spoiled little bitch brats. So let's focus the blame on someone else, like on another generation. Oh yeah, fuck you boomers, and then they got everyone involved with that. But and I guess so. Another thing is, like, a lot of things that happened to me because of my parents and who they were and how I was raised, looked at by people nowadays would be looked at as like abuse or something. And it's so weird how our ideologies are screwed up when it comes to discipline and stuff like that. And I'll tell the story here right now. And I was talking about the story earlier with my mom learning from my dad's way of disciplining kids. So it's kind of a funny story. It's actually a really funny story. I go back and I laugh all the time when I tell it to my girlfriend or my friends or something like that. But essentially what happened was, here, I'm going to sit up. Sorry if you hear all the chair screeches and squeaking. So, funny story. I want to say I was like 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old, and I had thrown a fit because I had wanted something from my dad and he just was not able to get it for me or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was really upset. And so my dad had dropped me and my mom off at a grocery store Walmart, which if anyone doesn't know, everyone probably knows what that is, but there's two Walmart types. There's like a super center, like a regular Walmart, super center, and then there's like a grocery Walmart that only sells food stuff. So my dad dropped me off at the grocery Walmart with my mom, and we were walking around, and I was still mad about the thing with my dad. My dad was parked out in the car waiting for me and my mom to be done. So I was complaining and whining, going through the whole store with my mom, probably embarrassing the shit out of her, and I was so mad because she had chose to ignore me. So I got a jar of pickles. Well, the first thing I found, jar of pickles, was the aisle we were on. I got a jar of pickles, and I just threw it on the ground. I destroyed it. And she was livid. My mom was so mad at the time. I still remember her being so pissed. And she was trying not to yell because she knew how embarrassing that would be to yell at a kid in the middle of a very public place like that. But she ended up getting some assistance for it. And, that was that. People came over and cleaned it up, and I was forced to apologize, even though I didn't want to apologize, but I had to apologize because it was a dick move on my part. And so we got done in the store, and we get picked up by my dad. My mom tells my dad, guess what Adam did inside Walmart? And he's like, what did you do, Adam? And she was like, he broke a jar of pickles and on the ground, and we had to have someone clean it up, and he was throwing a huge fit. And my dad was like, Adam, and it was like disciplining me. He wasn't like hurting me or hitting me or anything, but he was yelling at me, giving me a stern talking to. And we went home, and I was like, okay, whatever, I learned my lesson. So I talked it over with my mom. I was like, sorry, Mom, I'm sorry I was throwing a fit. I apologized to my mom and my dad, and they were like, Adam, it's okay, just do better next time. So, sorry if you hear these motherfuckers outside. Stupid motherfuckers on a motorcycle, stupid motherfuckers knocking on my door, shit like that. I lost my train of thought because I'm talking about stupid motherfuckers. I didn't mean any of that. No one knocking on my door is a stupid motherfucker, but the people on the motorcycle, yeah, motherfuckers. But anyway, so I apologized to my parents, and they were like, Adam, just do better next time, you'll be fine. It's fine. And then my dad was like, oh wait, we need to go get something at the regular Walmart. I forgot what it was too, but I knew we had to go to the regular Walmart. So he took us to the regular Walmart, and we had gone inside. He went inside with us, and we were walking around, and I went down, me and my mom and my dad split up. So I went with my mom, and my dad went another way. And so my mom goes down the toy aisle, and I was like, Mom, can I have a toy car? She was like, you think you deserve that after what you did earlier? And I was like, but I apologized. And she was like, oh yeah, I guess you did apologize, but as long as you gotta remember to do better next time, and don't throw a fit next time we have a little disagreement. And I was like, okay, Mom, I promise. And so she was like, pick out a car you want. So I got a model car. It was metal. It was pretty big, about the size of, I don't know, what do I compare it to? I don't know. It was big. It was a big toy car, not like huge, but like the size of like a book. It was like that big, So I got the car in a box, and I put it in the basket, and I was hopping around. I was so happy and full of joy and energy. And so we eventually meet up with Dad, and we go to the checkout, and we get everything we need. We get a checkout. And then I'm not even paying attention. I'm just like so excited I'm getting a car. So we leave, and we go load up the car. And I look in the bags, and I'm like, Mom, they forgot the car. And my mom was like, oh, they probably just forgot to bag it. Well, I'll get you something next time, Adam, I'm sorry. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was very sad, but I didn't throw a fit or anything. And I was like, okay, they forgot the car, And I was like, those stupid people at Walmart, how would they forget my car? It was my car, I was like, stuff little kids would think about. And I was like, well, how would you forget my car? That was my car. And it was so funny because I just lived with that. I don't even know if I got a toy next time I went to Walmart. But years later, like 8 years later, 9 years later, I asked my mom. I was like 15 or 16 when I asked my mom. It was like 2016. I think I asked my mom, like, hey, Mom, you remember when we went to Walmart and they forgot my toy car? And she was like, oh, yeah, I remember. Oh, Adam, but they didn't forget your car. I told them to put it back because you were being a spoiled little brat earlier. And I was like, oh, my God, Mom, you are such an ass. But it was such a well-played part by my mom. And I just thought that was a really funny story. I loved that. But, yeah, I talked in that story about abuse. Like in the car, my dad didn't abuse me. He didn't, like, hit me. That was probably really loud on my microphone. I'm sorry. He didn't, like, hit me or anything like that. But abuse is such a weird topic to talk about. Because, like I said earlier, there are things I remember that I shouldn't remember. Like throwing my train at the mirror and breaking it. Or walking around and getting an eyelash in my eye outside during a summer day. But there are things that I do remember that I would like not to remember. And it was last year, before coronavirus hit, for my birthday, we celebrated, and I was with my girlfriend, my best friend Grace, and one of my good friends Alexis. And we were with Maya's family too, my girlfriend's family. And we were telling stories about families and stuff like that. And the whole topic of, like, timeout came in, like how we were disciplined. And, Maya had timeout, and Alexis had timeouts, and Grace had timeouts. And, timeouts differed depending on who was my guardian when I was growing up. If my parents were at work and my grandma was home, her idea of a timeout was to stand on a corner for 5 minutes, and 5 minutes later you could go do whatever. My aunt did the same thing, or she would say, go to your room and just chill out in your room for a little bit. However, with my dad, this is, like, super hard for me to talk about because I just remembered it so vividly, and I still remember it. My dad would put me inside of a closet, a dark closet with no light whatsoever, and would hold the closet shut, not for 5 minutes, not for 10 minutes, not for 15 minutes, for about 45 minutes to an hour. My mom tells me that he didn't mean any harm by that, but I think it really did a lot to me. Because I'm about to talk about some of my fears that I think sprouted from that experience. But, and sometimes he would take me upstairs to his room, his bedroom, and put me inside the room and hold the door shut until I stopped crying or stopped complaining. And the thing was, I could never stop crying because I didn't like that. I didn't like being trapped inside of a little room with no one around me and being alone. But I had to deal with it, and it was the scariest memory I could think of. It was weird, My grandma even says that she had to step in and make sure that I wasn't doing anything to myself inside the closet, so she would jump on him and help me and get me out. And I guess you could look at that as abuse, and I would probably agree with you. My dad doesn't stop doing that after my grandma jumped on him, and he hadn't done that before, after that, or he hadn't done that after that, but, it's still scary. It's a scary experience. No kid should ever have to go through something like that. That's a lot. And, I was telling that to my friends, and they were, like, speechless, and their mouths were open. They were like, Adam, that's abuse. And I think My mom didn't do anything to me. You know, my mom was very like my aunt and my grandma. Like, go and stand in the corner for 5 minutes or go to your room and just chill out. And I think, I think that's actually what led into my fear. You know, for those of you who don't know, this is like about my childhood, so I guess I'll just say it. I have a massive, massive, massive fear of being alone. And I've remembered having that for the longest time. I swear it sprouted from those things that happened with the closet. I just for some reason cannot stand being alone. I've kind of grown out of it a little bit, but the whole fear thing is like I'm scared that no one's ever going to come back if I'm left alone. If I'm left alone, I'm scared that I'm always going to be alone for the rest of my life, and it's something that I actually had to go see a psychiatrist for and get medicine to help me, but it really didn't help me. You know, it was supposed to help like keep me calm and keep me like make sure that I wasn't too hyper about it or anything like that, but it really didn't help. And I was still very, very scared of being alone. And I still kind of have the problem today, and I don't know if I could ever get over that. And I guess for a little bit, my grandma even says that for a little bit after those times with my dad, that I had a fear of being in the dark. And I don't have that anymore. If I'm in the dark, I'm in the dark. But, with technology today, I don't see how anyone could be fully immersed in the dark. But that was just a dark time, and it led to a lot of fears of being alone, and I have a lot of memories of that. Like one day, being alone, I know my grandma and my aunt were out at a doctor's appointment, and Nick was at school, and I was sick. I didn't go to school because I was sick, and Nick was at school, and Steve was at work, my uncle Steve, and my aunt and grandma were at the doctor's appointment. My mom was at work, and my dad was the only one home taking care of me. And I'm like sitting playing my Xbox or whatever, and I look and my dad's sitting next to me. But then I go back to play my game and I look back and he's not there, and I see the bathroom door closed. So I'm like, okay, my dad's in the bathroom. And so I'm playing my game for like 10 more minutes, 20 more minutes, and the bathroom door's wide open. I look back, the bathroom door's wide open. I go in and he's not there. And I look outside, and my aunt's car is still gone. There's that motherfucker on a motorcycle. Hope you fucking die in a car crash. Just joking. JK. I'm getting a little bit too on edge. But yeah, I go upstairs, and everyone's not home yet. Obviously, it's like still like early in the morning, so Nick's still at school. My mom's still at work, and so I'm like, where's my dad then? I could not find my dad for the life of me. I looked everywhere, and I was screaming bloody murder. I could not stand it. It was so scary, and I was like losing my voice because I was screaming so much because I was just so scared of being alone, until I looked upstairs and realized that his bedroom door was closed, and then eventually I went upstairs and had heard the shower was on. So I was like, okay, he's taking a shower. And I calmed myself down, but then I just cried relentlessly for like the next 20 minutes because I was like, that's not something I should have been scared of. I didn't stay home alone for the first time until I was 12. That's a really embarrassing thing to say, but it's 100% true. And, I know a lot of people are listening to this being like, oh, your dad was such an asshole, your dad was this, your dad was that. But it wasn't like that, I mean, we get into a lot of heated arguments. We actually got into an argument about the whole Capitol riot that happened at the beginning of January, to the point where he called me a cunt and said he should get the fuck out of my house and, go live somewhere else and go be a bum with no life somewhere else, and kept calling me all these awful, fucking terrible, shitty names. And I do think he's a shitty person a lot of the time, but most of the time he's a good person. But he had a lot of trouble growing up too, and I know that's no reason to like justify what he did, but him growing up was weird because growing up with my aunt, his sister, their dad was very weird and ran away. He ran away from them when they were only very young, and they had to they were very poor and they couldn't afford anything. They always had to go to Quick Trip and get like dollar sandwiches for lunch and dinner every day, and they couldn't afford anything. And it turns out he took a lot of money with him, but he eventually passed away a couple years ago. He had a hard life too, is all I'm trying to say. I'm not saying I have a hard life because I feel like I have it a little bit easier than him, but I feel like he did something wrong in the sense that he did not learn from his mistakes with his dad, and he kind of brought them on to me. But hopefully when I get older and I have kids, I don't make those mistakes. Yeah. I just, I think, he hasn't apologized, and I don't ever think he will, but because I know he just thinks it's going to get me ready for the real world, and I think he's already done that enough. I already know what to expect. But, yeah. I think that about wraps up my time here with the next episode of the podcast. These aren't going to be like super, super long podcasts. Some of them might be, but yeah. I feel like I've gotten to say what I want to say about my childhood and basically the basics that everyone would maybe be interested in hearing. I'll talk more about my childhood later on as time goes by. Next episode, I'm going to talk about baseball and my medical condition, which is asthma. And I'll talk about how much of a bitch asthma is and how I was involved with baseball and how weird that was. That portion of my life that I sometimes forget about. It's super weird. But I just want to say thank you all so much for listening to this episode 2 of the podcast. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. I hope you guys are enjoying this podcast. And yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will see you guys in the next episode of the podcast. Thank you for listening to the Kansas Kid Podcast, episode 2. Take care.